Hey guys, so we really need to talk. So as you guys know, there's a ton going on right now in the world, just there's a lot going on right now. We've been in quarantine for I don't even know how long. I could not tell you. Everything's been closed down. We've been in quarantine and now the world is going crazy. People are rioting, people are protesting for Black Lives Matter, for George Floyd. Rest in power, George Floyd. But I do want to start out with this video by saying I 110% all the way support the Black Lives Matter movement. Don't support All Lives Matter, and I'll get into that in another video. But today's video, as you can see by the title, is going to be me talking about my experience as a Black woman in America. Right now, the world is insane. Everyone's protesting, everybody's rioting, everybody's angry. And I want to do a video series on everything that's going on, and this is just part one. But I want to be able to use my platform to spread my experience and spread awareness throughout everybody who watches me. Obviously, my platform isn't super big, but I'm hoping that this can get around, that people will be able to see it, that other people will appreciate it. I just hope that, I guess I'm going to be able to give light on the subject. And I want to be able to let people know that this is a safe place for people to go. So if anybody's having issues with anything, they can always come here. They can always come to me. My Instagram is down in the description box. You guys can always DM me. But from now on, I'm having a couple links down below that will lead you to links for petitions, numbers, emails, Black-owned businesses, just a bunch of stuff down below so you guys can support the Black Lives Matter movement and can help yourselves, especially if you can't donate. There's other things that you guys can do. But again, I'm going to get into that in another video. Without further ado, let's just get right into this video. If you guys see me looking down, I have a bunch of notes of what I wanted to say. But yeah, so that's why I'm looking down a little bit. So I'll start in the beginning. Obviously, I was born, I'm Black and white. My mom is white, my dad is Black. That is just making me mixed. As you can see, I do have melanin in my skin. My hair is curly. You look at me, you think Black. You don't look at me and think white. I'm not white passing. No, I am Black. So let's just start out with elementary school. I'm basically just going to be going based off of the schooling, that age group, Since I was little, I always knew I was different. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, an area. Honestly, I don't know completely what the percentage is. I want to say it's 85% white and the rest of it is other races, less than 2% being Black. If I'm remembering right, there were probably no more than 10 Black kids, including me, at the elementary school. Everybody else was white. There were probably a couple Asians, a couple Hispanics, a couple Islanders. There was no diversity whatsoever, not even the staff members. I always felt different. I always felt kind of left out from everybody because I looked different. I had no colored friends. There were a couple colored people that I knew, but I wouldn't necessarily call them my friends, but we were nice to each other, whatever. But I had no colored friends. All my friends were white. Since we were little, I'm not gonna say that people were racist, because they weren't. We were literally little ass kids. What do we have to be racist about, Luckily, these people didn't have parents that grew up telling them hate Black people and all that kind of stuff. As far as I know, I did not go to middle school or high school with any of these people I went to elementary school with. But in elementary school, they weren't being taught that. They didn't know that. So that wasn't an issue in elementary school. But there were things that the other kids would do or say, or even the parents would do and say, that made me feel extra different, made me feel weird. Gave me weird vibes, even as a little kid. For an example, I was always asked if I was adopted, which I'm not gonna blame nobody for that, because, you see a white mom pick up her Black daughter from school, people are gonna be that's kind of weird. We were little kids. I don't think people realize that you can be mixed, but even adults would ask me and my mom if I was adopted. But it was also so weird to me because my dad would come to lunch with me once, twice, maybe even 3 times a month. So I don't know why these people had thought that I was adopted, but that always gave me weird vibes. It gave me a weird feeling in my stomach to be asked if I was adopted all the time, because I didn't think being adopted was bad, but the fact that I had a loving family and people would ask me if I was adopted just because I looked different from my mom, it was kind of just I don't know how I feel about that. But again, I was in elementary school. I kind of didn't really know what was going on. I kind of just knew that that's how people thought of me. but I didn't feel like people were making fun of me, not on purpose anyways. And then another thing that people used to do in elementary school, including the teachers, any adults that I would come by, they would always comment on my hair. It was never anything bad that I can remember. It would just be like kind of compliments, or people would come up and like touch my hair just like without me knowing. Like they would be like coming up and touching it and pet it and be like, oh my god, like your hair's so pretty. Like they would come up and maybe even smell my hair and be like, oh my god, your hair smells so good, like blah 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 blah. It was almost like my hair was like a park attraction, which it's not. But so that also made me feel weird, definitely made me feel different, because again, growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood in a predominantly white school, pretty much everybody had straight hair, and even if they didn't have straight hair, they would like straighten it, or like it would be like not even noticeably curly, you know. It was very light waves, like it was not anything tight and coily like mine or the other mixed or black kids in that school. But yeah, so everybody kind of treated my hair like a park attraction. I didn't think anything of it. I would kind of just be like, oh thanks, but like please don't touch my hair, like please don't touch me, like I'm not an animal in a zoo, like you don't get to come up and pet me, like that's not how this is gonna work, you know. Another thing that would happen sometimes is like, sometimes like in stores, I'd be like walking around with my mom and like we would get like weird looks or like different like double takes, like people would be like, because like I was a little black girl walking around with my mom, like my white mom. But growing up in, again, a predominantly white neighborhood, the beauty standards were also very different. When I was younger, I used to tell my mom, like when I got home, I would be like, yeah, I want to look like Barbie, like I want to be white, I want to have blue eyes, blonde hair, I want to have straight hair, I want to be skinny and tall and blah 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 blah. Like and it was because I didn't want to feel different, I didn't want to look different from everybody else. I didn't want to be an attraction anymore because of my curly hair. I didn't want to be asked if I was adopted just because I had different skin color and different hair. So that's basically all that happened really in elementary school. But how sad is that, that like a little kid, like not even the double digits yet, wanted to be different because of the color of their skin. And it sucks because that's like a norm, like that's a normal thing for a little black girl to feel. But now once we get to middle school, this is actually where people started to be like racist and like started to be ignorant and prejudiced and all that kind of stuff. This is when we started getting into the actual bad stuff. So I had switched middle schools from like everybody that I went to elementary school with. They were all going to one middle school. I switched middle schools because I was like bullied for other reasons in elementary school. I didn't want to go to school with them no more. So middle school is when people started to be racist, started to be mean. This is when people began to use like stereotypes, and like it started as like kind of innocent stereotypes, like not really like hurtful stereotypes. Like black people love fried chicken and watermelon. They can't swim, they're athletic, they can jump, like they can run. There's a family member named Tyrone. Like people would always, it was like innocent stereotypes, but at the same time people would make fun of me when I either went along with the stereotypes or didn't go along with the stereotypes. For example, I don't hate fried chicken, but I don't love it, and I really do not like watermelon. So then people would be like, oh, you're the whitest black person I've ever met. You don't like fried chicken, you don't like watermelon, like blah, 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 blah. Like, or like my uncle, his name's Tyrone. So it'd be like, oh my God, ha, 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 you have an uncle named Tyrone? Like, that's so funny. Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, it would just be like a funny joke. I can't swim very well. Like, I'm not a terrible swimmer, but I just can't swim very well. So they'd be like, oh yeah, like, you can't swim because you jumped off the boats and blah, 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 blah. So it'd be like, and in middle school, I did not stand up for myself, like, literally at all. Like, I was non-confrontational. I'm like that. Like, I'm confrontational now. Like, you say some shit to me, like, you get popped in the nose. But I was not like that when I was younger. So I kind of just took it. I kind of just was like, okay, whatever. But then the stereotypes started to get like more mean. The stereotypes started to get more offensive. And I'm not saying that other stereotypes aren't offensive, because like you shouldn't stereotype people anyways. People would always ask me if I had a dad, because the stereotype of like black people not having a dad was like a thing. So I'd be like, oh, like, do you have a dad? Like, you don't have a dad. Like, your dad left you, like blah, 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 blah. When in fact, I do have a dad. I literally live with my dad. Like, I love my dad very much. My dad loves me. Like, so why do you have to use black people not having a dad like against me? Like, you don't know me, so you don't have any right to say anything like that, you know? They would always say that I was like scary. Like when they first met me, they thought I was a bitch. They thought I was scary. Like they thought I was gonna beat them up, when literally I was like the most innocent little person. Like I kept to myself, I kept quiet. Like I didn't even think I looked mean. Like I might have had an RBF, but even if I did, like I was one of the sweetest people. Or they would call me like the angry black girl, even though I really wasn't angry openly anyways. If I was angry, I would keep it to myself. I would handle it when I was at home. People would also say that like black people are thieves, like, oh, you probably stole that, you probably stole this, like blah 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 blah. Like it would be kind of stuff like that would go on. A lot of people also would ask me if I would like smoke with them or like do drugs with them, because like there's a stereotype of black people doing drugs and black people being like potheads or crackheads or whatever. So people would be like, oh yeah, I bet you smoke weed all the time, like literally as a 6th grader, like. And then I'd be like, no, I've never smoked, I never done drugs. And then people would be like, oh my god, you haven't? Like I really expected you to do all the drugs. But I would feel like I would be the last person that anybody would ever think to do drugs. People would always ask me also, oh, does your dad, is your uncle, like, is anybody in a gang? Like, I bet they're part of the Bloods. I bet they're part of the Crips. Like, and then they would be, like, trying to do the gang signs. I'm like, y'all, if you do that in the wrong spot, y'all are going to end up getting shot. Like, my dad and my uncle are not in gangs, but you can't be joking around about that stuff because that's not funny, and that's actually, like, a really serious thing that goes on. And like another thing, I feel like a lot of people presume for gangs to be like bad things, and like people get into gangs for the wrong reasons. I'm not gonna say that they're not good actually, because like some people, gangs are their family, but like gangs aren't bad, but gangs aren't like great, awesome, wonderful kind of thing, you know? But like they always presume for gangs to be like a bad thing, like, oh, you guys kill people, like, oh, you do this, you do that. Like, I'm not in a gang, my family is not in a gang. Like, they just automatically assume for us to be a part of the Bloods or be a part of the Crips. Like, oh, I only ever see you wearing red, or like you a Blood. Oh, I only ever see you wearing blue, like, are you a Crip? Like, I don't understand like why people just like automatically put all these labels to me, especially when like I feel like I'm the very last person for you to look at and think gang. People would also always bring up like slaves. I guess that's like, I don't know if you would want to call that a stereotype, but they would always be like joking around and be like, oh yeah, go pick up my shoes, slave, or go pick up my backpack, slave, or go sharpen my pencil, slave. And they would be like joking around, or like some person would be about to say it, but then they would realize like, oh, she's black, I can't say that. So then they would be like, go rub my back, servant, and then would laugh about it. Like, being a slave is not funny. Slavery is not a joke. Yes, my ancestors were slaves because I am African American. I have a British, I believe it's British, last name. I have no idea where I come from in Africa, which really sucks about being African American, because I don't know if I trust like the 23andMe thing. Like, I don't know if I want to give them my DNA. Like, I don't know that whole entire half side of me. All I know is that like a lot of us are in the South, and that's where they were the most segregated, by the way, which is another really weird, awful coincidence kind of thing, I guess. I don't know this whole entire half side of me because of slavery. Slavery was really not that long ago, if you want to think about, like, if you really think about it, slavery was not that long ago compared to some other things that happened. Also, I forgot to mention, my middle school was, again, predominantly white. And then finally, like, the last thing that was said to me, like, based off a stereotype, was that, like, I live on welfare or I am poor. I'm not rich. I can't afford super expensive shoes. I can't afford super nice clothes. Like, I'd say my clothes are nice. Like, I have nice clothes. I definitely have more than others. I'm going to acknowledge that. But I'm not rich. Like, I can't go out and buy 5 pairs of Lululemon leggings. Like, I can't go about and get like a whole wardrobe full of shoes. So I'm not poor. I live in a house. Like, both my parents have houses. We have food. Like, we're able to pay the bills. Like, I'm not poor. Have never lived on welfare my entire life. But I remember in 7th grade, I was sitting in my algebra class. I remember this so vividly. I was sitting there with my friend. We were doing math. We were doing the homework, whatever we were doing. And this kid behind me, I don't even know why he said it, because like I said, I was not confrontational. I was not mean. Like, I wasn't doing nothing to him. But then he brought up the fact that, oh, you're probably living on diapers and welfare and on a park bench. He was like, yeah, because black people live on welfare, and oh, you should get a Bape hoodie. And if you don't know, Bape hoodies, the ones that zip up in the front. But he was like, you should get a Bape hoodie to cover up your ugly black face. And so then I remember I broke down crying. Like, I broke down in tears, lost my mind. And my teacher came up to me and she was like, what are you crying about? Because that teacher did not like me for whatever reason, but we gonna get into that. But she was like, why are you crying? Like, this and that. And I was like, well, he was like being racist. Like, he was being rude. He was not being okay. And then my friend was like, yeah, like, what he said was not right. And then she was like, oh, well, we don't cry in this class, so you're gonna have to get over it. You're gonna tell me to get over that? Like, really? Okay, so this is what we're doing. But again, was not confrontational, was not gonna say something. I was just like, all right, like, let me go get a tissue, I'll be fine. that kid never got punished. He never got sent out of the office, nothing like that. And that's basically all the stereotypes that I can remember really being called or told or whatever you want to call it. The next thing that really happened a lot in middle school, and it kind of happened in elementary school too a little bit, was I was always judged for my hair. Again, like I said, in elementary school, it was good or whatever. Like, people complimented it. They said it was pretty. People continue to do that in middle school, and they still continue to touch me like I was a park attraction. They continue to come up and smell it and be all weird, you know? But this is when people started to get like a little bit mean. And it made me feel like I shouldn't embrace my naturally curly hair. People always said that I looked like a lion. I wouldn't say that that's the meanest thing someone has ever said to me, you know, but they would always compare me to a lion. Since I said that my neighborhood was predominantly white, everybody was blonde, and if they weren't brown, they had brown straight hair. So I wanted to be like everybody else. So I did end up bleaching the ends of my hair because I wanted ombre. I wanted to look cool. So I decided to do that too because I thought that it would make me pretty, and I thought that it would make me more desired at school. I feel like my hair right now is a big part that plays in my confidence because like it's something that I can't change. It's like I feel like this is a huge part of me. I've come to the conclusion that like my hair is a huge part of me. It's what makes me beautiful. I just was never able to embrace my naturally curly hair in middle school. I always wore it in buns or ponytails, and I didn't straighten it a lot, but like I always wanted to, but it was way too much work for me. I just didn't have the energy to when I could just throw it up into a tight bun, slick it back as much as I could, and just kind of like tie it up. I wore headbands a lot just to kind of like settle everything down, kind of hide everything, you know? So I didn't want to feel different. I wanted to feel normal. I wanted to feel like the same as everybody else. So I would just kind of like hide my hair as much as I could. Another thing that happened more in middle school than I think elementary school was like whenever we would talk about slaves or Martin Luther King or whatever, I would always get dirty looks. Another thing that I want to point out with learning about that stuff, again, growing up in a predominantly white area, they very much add a little white twist to all the Black history. They very much like whitewash, I guess, the curriculum. They whitewash Black history. They only talk about a few couple things. They don't tell us where we came from. They don't tell us how everything happened. Like they miss out a lot of parts, and they also change up stories. They just don't share to the full extent what actually happened, what people actually go through, how it's not over. Like just because MLK got the bathrooms to be mixed doesn't mean that racism is over, you know? That always that was kind of like a weird little thing that I don't know if that happens in all predominantly white neighborhoods, or if like the culture and the curriculum in predominantly Black or Hispanic neighborhoods is more Hispanic and Black oriented. I don't really know how the superintendents and how school districts decide that kind of stuff, but that's how it was at my school. In middle school, another thing that this is like what started in middle school was being called the N-word, which is why I do not like the N-word. Even if it's with the A at the end, if it's the ER, I don't care. I don't really enjoy the word very much, because in that school district, people knew that you were not supposed to say it with the ER. They knew that it was like a bad word. They knew that it was used like in the slavery days. Like they knew that, but they still managed to turn, because apparently like with today's meaning of the N-word with the A at the end, it means like friend, it means like pal, it means like buddy, whatever. But these people were still able to turn that meaning into a bad meaning and call me a N-word in like the negative way, you know? This is another thing that really happened. 7th grade English block, we had a substitute, and he was an old ass man. Like I remember he had a crooked finger, like he was bald, like whatever. And it was me and I want to say 2 other Black people in that class. Maybe 1. I think it might have just been 1. Or maybe it was just me. I don't know. I think it was 1 in my class, and then in the other class there were like 2. So then we got back together and like talked about it later. But he literally told the class, he looked at me and he was like, we need slaves because slaves did good for the economy, and we just need slaves because we shouldn't have to do all the work. So I don't know what's going on, but it needs to stop. So that actually did happen. That made me feel very uncomfortable. Me and the other Black kids had told my teacher, and the teacher was like, oh no, that's like not okay, like blah, blah, blah. But if I remember correctly, that man did not get fired. pretty sure he still subs. If not, it's because he's too old. It's not because he got fired or nothing. Me being black, that made me feel very uncomfortable. I was honestly very scared to be in that class. Not a good situation. Another thing that I want to talk about as being a black teenager in America, I was always targeted for things. In basketball, my coach, I don't know why he wasn't a fan of me. When I was in 8th grade, I was the only 8th grader on the varsity team, but everybody else was white. So I was always benched. I was always played for like a minute and then taken out. It was always just like, it was always super tense for me. I felt like I was under a lot of pressure because he always pressured me like to be the best. But then he wouldn't let me play. Like, he would take me out. He would tell me I was doing this wrong, I was doing that wrong. Like, I'm all for the constructive criticism, but when you're just sitting there and bullying me and bashing me for I don't even know how long about things that like I didn't mean to do, like, give me constructive criticism, but you don't have to sit here and bully me for an hour about missing a free throw, you know? Same thing with volleyball. My volleyball teachers, both coaches, were pretty racist, if I do say so myself. The 6th grade coach was my math teacher that told me I had to suck it up when that kid was saying that stuff to me. But basically, again, was always pulled out, was always yelled at for no reason when it wasn't even me doing the wrong. Like, I'm not trying to say that I'm saying I do everything right, but in these situations, I was not doing anything wrong. It was not me. But they would also try to like embarrass me and my other black friend at practice. I hated being targeted just because of my race. That's really all I have to say about it. People had told me, like, I was in middle school, I wasn't really worried about sex or nothing like that. Like, that was not anything that I was worried about. People would only ever have sex with me if I had a bag over my head because my body was nice, but black people weren't attractive. That's what I got told in middle school. And when I told you, that broke my heart. Like, that broke my entire heart in pieces. Like, I wasn't worried about having sex. I didn't want to have sex. Nothing like that. But the fact that somebody had to say that they had to cover up my face to be able to do that with me because my body was nice, but my skin and my face wasn't, like, broke my heart. It made me feel like black was ugly. It made me want to be white again. Well, I shouldn't ever have to think like that or anything like that. But that was the truth. That was what happened. And then finally, the last thing that I'm going to talk about that happened really in middle school was like, this is when like the racist jokes started coming out. They thought that joking about racism was funny. One racist joke that I do really remember was people would be like, oh, like, why aren't you tall? Like, aren't all black people tall because they're Negroes? Ha ha ha. Get it? Because their knees grow. Like, that's not funny. Like, that was just like, I guess, an excuse for them to use one of the versions of the N-word. Like, that wasn't a joke to me. Another joke that they would always say was like, oh yeah, like, why do all black people have nightmares? Because they killed the only one with a dream, talking about Martin Luther King. Like, that shit's not funny. Like, I don't know what made these people think that it was funny, but it was always like dark humor, like racist jokes like that. So that's basically like the end of middle school. People also say that I was like pretty for a black girl. Like, I hate the backhanded compliment shit. Like, it can be switched around. Like, people can say that like, oh, you're pretty for a white girl too, but like, being black in a predominantly white area where white was considered beautiful, that shit did not like make me feel good. And in high school, the racism was still bad, but I feel like in high school, it was just like it was a lot of continued stuff from middle school that would continue to happen in high school. But in high school, I feel like I got recognized a lot for being black and like not praised, but like I was asked to speak about it a lot more. But again, there were more stereotypes. People really thought that I was like the angry black girl in high school because I started speaking up for myself more. I started defending myself. I was able to talk about things like, so they're always like, oh, you're the angry black girl. You're so loud. You yell all the time. And yeah, so that was another thing. Another stereotype that a lot of people would say about black girls was that like they're hoes and they're easy and all this kind of stuff, and they would always call me a hoe, and they would always consider black girls like easy, and that was not fun. Another thing that started happening in high school, because of course we were getting into high school, this is when a lot of people did start having like sex and started doing like sexual stuff, but like a lot of people tried to use me for my body and try to like ask me for pictures and ask me to have sex and ask me to do this and ask me to do that. I always said no. But then they would turn around and be like, oh, you're a hoe, like, it's like you're black. Like, they would use like my skin color against me just because I said no. And they'd be like, you're just mad that you can't get anybody, like, blah, 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 blah. But it was almost like they considered if they got with a black girl, it would consider like a prize. Again, like, I was a park attraction. Like, they had to be first in line. Like, it was just like, it was always like that. And then they would get mad when I said no. But it was always like I was able to like be had sex with. I was able to like do this and do that and send them pictures, but I was never girlfriend material because I was angry and I was a hoe. But like I said, in high school, I started getting like called out a lot more and like asked, I guess, a lot more to do things about it. For example, in freshman year, we read To Kill a Mockingbird. I'd be always asked my opinion about the book. Like, oh yeah, like what's the Black person's view on this book? Like, first of all, I can't speak on a whole entire race of people. Like, I cannot give my opinion for an entire race of people. We would talk about these things and people would have their opinions. Like, I understand you have your opinions, you have your right to your opinion, but some people's opinions would like make me uncomfortable, and I don't know if they were doing it on purpose. They probably weren't. That's just how they were raised. But some people's opinions would like make me uncomfortable. So like I started speaking out on it a little bit and being like, well, that's kind of wrong to say, or this and that. I was disrespected for my views. I was also respected for my views. My English teacher freshman year had asked me to formulate a Black History Month project for my class to do, which was kind of annoying because I came up with the project, I presented it to the class, and then she had everybody start to do the project. People started being mean to me and being like, oh, you were making us do extra work, like all for what? Just because like Black history, like it's not that important, all that kind of stuff. And we didn't even end up finishing the presentations because people didn't want to do them, so the teacher didn't make them do it. I was also asked to speak a lot about equality and about the racist things that were happening in high school. I was asked to speak at a middle school lock-in about equality. I was also asked to speak in front of the paraeducators of the district about equality, about what we can change, about all this kind of stuff. And then I also spoke in front of my English class, but that was based off my choice purely because people were making me uncomfortable in that class, and I just felt like I needed to get my voice out because nobody was listening to me. But at the same time, like I was saying earlier about like the whole history being like whitewashed and all this kind of stuff, I feel like these people try to like sugarcoat racism. Like they try to make it like a good thing or like a sweet thing. Like at the middle school lock-in, I was asked to talk about equality and how I was treated, but then they told me that I had to make it a positive thing and make it like something that we could change, and like, oh yeah, you were called the N-word, but it's okay because it made you stronger. Like, no, that's not how that works, because then you're like, by you sugarcoating it, you're not going to change anything because you're just giving these kids a mindset like, oh, I'm going to say the N-word. Okay, well, it's just going to make these people stronger. Like, it's okay thing to do. They don't understand that to actually cause change, you need to make people uncomfortable. Another scenario that happened in high school, which kind of just tipped me off the edge, this is really what caused me to move, was my friend at the time. Her boyfriend, or whatever you want to call him, and all of his friends wanted to disrespect me for my views and not for standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, which I'll get into that in the second video. But I don't stand for the pledge, so we were at an assembly and I didn't stand, and these people wanted to tell me like, oh, like this country doesn't want you if you're not gonna respect the flag, and if you're not gonna stand for the national anthem and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and blah 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 blah. Canada's only like 6 hours away, like you can walk. Like I've heard they got box water, like trying to turn it into a joke when it's like not, and they're sitting there telling me to go to another country because like this country doesn't want me because I don't appreciate America. Like that just tipped me off the end. So then that's when I moved, and I moved to a place where it is very like equal, I would say, which is super good. I really appreciate it. I really like the diversity here. And I'm not saying that I hate white people, because I don't, but I hate ignorant white people. I don't like when people are uneducated and when they're ignorant and rude for no reason, because that's the difference between the white people where I used to live and the white people here. But yeah, so I moved. Everybody over here is so much more humble. They're so much more like kind to me. I feel so much more accepted. Just like even walking around in the halls, just like being able to be me, being able to embrace me. Like I just feel so much better here. That's it. That was a really long video. I don't know how long it's going to be when like I edit it. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you guys if you made it this far, like listening to my story, listening to what's happened to me. If you guys ever need somebody to talk to about what's happened to you, you can always DM me. You can leave a comment on this, like whatever you need to do, you can always talk to me. I understand you, I hear you, I want to listen to you, I want your experience and your voices to be heard. So this is just the first video. I have 3 more coming out on Friday, so make sure you guys stay tuned. Turn my post notifications on. I will be posting those on Friday, so be on the lookout for that. But again, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Don't forget to check out the link or the links, whatever, down below. And I'll see you guys on Friday for the next videos.